Hello traders at CMC Markets. My name is Trevor Neil, analyst at RRG Research, and I'm presenting to you today on Friday the 15th of December. Today we're going to look at asset classes initially. We're going to look at equities, we're going to look at the FANG Plus stocks, we're going to look at global equities and the developing theme here towards European equities, and then we're going to look at gold and foreign exchange. So we've got a lot to cover, so let's get started. Now the first relative rotation graph I've got here is of asset classes using ETFs to classify the assets. In the middle here we've got the MSCI World as a benchmark. Now, there's several things which we can see here very clearly. First of all, the longest tail sweeping down here is the commodities index, and this is in a large part because of the fall in crude oil recently, and also the damp squib of a break to new highs in gold. We see gold too, it's still relatively strong. It's the asset class which is furthest to the right. However, the direction of it here, it shows some sort of deterioration, but not the end of the world or anything like that at all. And this can easily flip round again like the S&P has done. The other thing of note is the Europe 350 there, the broadly based Europe indices, and we see this when we come down in a moment. We'll be looking at individual stock indices, and we'll see that there's a cluster of European indices which are moving in the right direction, and this is probably early warning of something which is a change of theme in the market when Europe has a bit of a comeback after being such an underperformer versus the US, in particular the FANG Plus stocks on Nasdaq stocks. This is looks like that for the moment we're changing around, and Europe, which has got some catching up to do, but one notable index made a new high this week, all-time high this week, and I think that's going to be the pattern. There are some new all-time highs going to be made soon. So a little sort of flick around from weakness into improving now, and then it looks as though it's heading towards leading quadrant there. So it's early stages of this change in relative relationship. Now we've got two relative rotation graphs here of major stock indices. On the left hand one is the weekly sampling, and on the right hand one is on the daily sampling. Let's start with the weekly, and what we're looking for is ones which agree with each other, and so that in a relative basis we've got the tide and the waves moving together, and these are often very impulsive movements. So starting with the weekly, what is heading northeast? This is a good direction. We see the stocks, the European indices, the DAX, the big stock index, the CAC moving up. And so these are all in the improving quadrant, close to crossing over to the leading quadrant and improving. But let's look at the daily picture. Here you can see what's heading northeasterly, the good direction in this. The furthest to the right is the DAX, the stocks, the CAC, the Dow again. The FTSE improving, of course the FTSE has shot up on Thursday. The Nikkei and the Hang Seng confirming the weak situation, and they would be the sell side of any pairs trade, which would be probably pairing off with a European index on this side. We see the Nasdaq not in a good position here in this unfamiliar place of the lagging quadrant, and the FANG too in there too. Could turn around again, but it is on the left hand side of the JDK-RS ratio, and so the better opportunities for catch up is in the European indices. Now looking at the weak ones, if you're doing a pair trade, we know the Hang Seng is going down and down. That's been the case, but the Nikkei has gone up a lot, but it's struggling, isn't it? 33,800, 1, 2, 3, 4-5 tops in place here, a double top in place just here, and completing that double top and moving down. It is really struggling with that 33,800 level. It's making a megaphone pattern, which is a bit of an unusual pattern, a wedge that is widening out. But the MACD is very negative for it, and the RSI also quite weak. Let's have a look at the CAC, one of those ones which was heading northeasterly and in a good position in both the weekly and the daily RRG. Now, since we broke the downtrend line here back in November, mid-November, and we made the low here back in the end of October, this has been moving ahead very strongly indeed. But what is it doing? It's back to the all-time high, which was made in April 23 this year. And here we're testing it now, a little bit of backing off. That would be normal at such an important level. So we'll have to see. We've got some shadows above on the daily chart here, which infers that it probably will come back a bit further. Maybe we'll find support at this previous high here. Let's just put that in. We are, and that level is at 7,520, maybe holding around there. If it is, that's good, and probably infer that we'd have another attempt to the upside. The MACD is looking very good. The RSI is barreling ahead higher pretty well, a little bit of an edge off it on this move here. So watch this very closely. It's either going to fail here or it's going to break up here. I think it's actually going to break up here and move through 7,600 is actually going to reveal it. Dangerous place to trade, but watch it very closely in the beginning of next week for indication of breakout or failure. Now, next one to look at is the FTSE. Not that the FTSE was in a good position on the RRG chart, but it's at a very interesting technical position. We had a high here at 7,728, then couple of highs just above that, and then on Thursday we touched it and backed off from it. So it's feeling the heat from that resistance level. Yes, we've got higher lows in place here. We've got an MACD which is positive and the gap is still widening because that was a big jump there, close to close basis, which is how the MACD is calculated, and the RSI is strong too. So there is momentum here. Again, we need to watch this crucial level. It's a difficult place to know whether we are breaking out or not. We will know if we get through the high here at 7,750. We'll know it's failed if it makes much more progress on the downside from here off that high and leaves a long upper shadow up and there. That's be very disappointing and would mean that at the very least the move to new recent highs since July is postponed. So it's a dangerous place, difficult to know how it's going to go. The momentum is good, it's got to be said, but we have backed off quite hard from the high. So watch this very closely. But long time favourite since the October low there, we saw that downtrend line break and we got very bullish at this point. It's barreled ahead very strongly on the DAX and it's making a new high. It made a new high this week, new all-time high this week when it broke 16,500. Pushing ahead very strongly, gap widening on the 50 and 200 day moving average. MACD is positive. The RSI is flattening out a little bit, but it's still climbing. Mathematically, it's difficult for the RSI to climb when it's up in the 90s, but it is powering ahead. It is supported at 16,500. So the one that we've loved for a long time is the DAX, but as a whole group, the European group, I would exclude the FTSE, is looking better, and there's a lot of big struggle going on in the US market and in particular in the tech stocks. Now, of course, stocks are going up and strongly. And so here we're looking at the FANG Plus stocks versus the S&P. So anything on the right of the vertical 100 is doing better than the S&P, anything on the left is doing not so well. Nvidia, for example, not looking good. Netflix not looking good either. Microsoft moved down and it's heading southwesterly. We've got AMD climbing, that's good. Apple climbing as well, and Snowflake, the big one here, way out on the right compared to the other ones, and it is a much better looking chart than everything else. Now you remember from the RRG of the FANG Plus stocks, the one furthest to the left is Nvidia. And Nvidia essentially is ranging. It's not got higher lows, it's got 400 as a base, and then the top of the range is 500, 400 to 500. It's looking okay, but bearing in mind what's going in the rest in the stock markets generally, this is not a great performance and a drag on the index. Here's Tesla, and Tesla is in a downtrend, lower high, 4 points there, nice and clear. Probably we could draw a parallel line in here, and we've got a base here below 200, 195 in fact. Looks as though we were turning down from that downtrend line again. The MACD is crossing over, the RSI is falling away here. This doesn't look good at all in a stock market which is doing really well. We also saw great positioning of AMD in the RRG chart. It's broken to a new recent high, not all-time high, at 133, moved ahead powerfully. The MACD gap is widening here, so we're seeing a strengthening market. The RSI is strong, just hooking over a little bit on yesterday's action. Just want to look at the context of this here now, and you can see that the high was up at 165, and it does look as though we can push strongly towards that level. There is some resistance here, but given the power that we have currently, it does look as though we can push forward quite nicely towards it. The question is there an opportunity here? This hesitant candle here might mean that we're going to pull back a little bit. If we do and hold above 133 and start to move up, then that's a setup, I think, for a run up towards that previous high. So one to watch very closely here. And finally, for the stocks, Snowflake. Snowflake up on the top right, pointing northeasterly, good position here. And this one very interesting because different from the other pictures. We're not flirting with the highs here. We're way below the highs. It's formed a big base, a symmetrical triangle. We have broken out of it. We haven't yet cleared, but the final sort of message that we're on our way is if we break through 205, 206. The MACD is looking good, it's positive. The RSI likewise too, but I think we're breaking up here, and we've got a big base here which can support a large move. 247 next resistance, then intensifying at 253. But it does look as though we can clear and move strongly towards that. Here we are, moving up powerfully here, like the RSI, like the MACD, looking good. And here is the damp squib, which is gold. 1, 2, 3 attempts really at the $2,000 level. And then here, just recently, this push through, getting up to a high of 2,114 and then collapsing really quickly, a clear false break. Usually the reactions from false breaks are quite powerful because they're leaving traders long up in here and wanting to liquidate, and we've had this quite powerful breakdown. However, it has come to where the first serious support comes in, which is 1985, has held there and started to bounce. That's probably it. We're probably going to have another go at this resistance level. It is such a level now, such a powerful mental psychological level. I think it'd be worth being patient to see whether this is really finally going to break, because after all, the implications of a good break here is a massive amount of support below, and it should support a very substantial rise, so there's no need to hurry into this. But it looks as though it's going to have another go, and I would think that very soon we'll have a decision whether it's failing once again or finally making the break to the upside. Now moving to the currencies. This is the dollar index. We have been coming down since we had these two tops up at here at around 107, came down, punched hard into support, rallied to 105, and then that has now turned over and the dollar is falling away sharply, and you'll see this in the RRG chart in a moment. Things are appreciating versus the dollar. MACD has crossed down, the RSI is negative, slight uptick here. We've got some good support, but it's still way down here from these lows in January of this year, April, May this year, and we breached it but then rallied again, and I would say that this is now going to extend the support point here, and that's where we're headed, down to 101. So here is that fall. We had the fall, we had a rally, and then now a fall in the dollar again. So we have the reciprocal of that here. So if we take, for example, the euro, the fall, the latest fall in the dollar is this period here, and this is the end of the rally that preceded it. And so these have all got more or less the same shape. But the significant difference is the Japanese yen. Japanese yen has pushed up in a northeasterly direction, and it's furthest to the right. So we'll look at the yen chart, and I also want to draw your attention to the Swiss franc, because this might be a big story for 2024. There's a big picture on the Japanese yen. This is the dollar, in fact. So this fall here is a fall in the dollar and a rise in the yen. We've got two tops in place here at 152, very clear. Then a failure of this long run up in the dollar and turning down here. And what I think is very interesting is how it's behaved in that recent rally in the dollar. Now, what is very noticeable in that brief rally in the dollar, how little the yen responded to that. Other ones rallied or fell very sharply, but here the yen didn't fall very much at all, and the trend really continued and is looking very purposeful. The MACD here, you can see the gap is widening quite aggressively, so the momentum is increasing. And then on the RSI, we're going down here, lower highs in place. It's a very bearish picture. So this one looks as though the momentum is gathering. You've got quite orderly pattern here. And lastly, I want to talk about what I think might be the big one for 2024, and that is the Swiss franc. At this, you can see there's a monthly chart, okay, a long-term chart here. We're testing these lows around 85-ish from January 2021, but if this gives way, which is happening right now, then we're retesting the debacle of 2015 occasion. There's no support below here now until you get down to the 75 cent level. So here we've got to break this little low here at 85.68, but this sort of 85-cent area here, if this gives way, which seems likely given the behavior of the MACD, the gap widening there, and the RSI also looking weak. Here we are on a daily chart, and here's that low that we're approaching to test, 85.58. MACD is negative, gap is widening, RSI is moving down. We're in a downtrend channel, the tide definitely down, the waves are definitely down, even the wavelet is definitely down as well. This is a crucial point. A break of that really unleashes no support whatsoever until you go back to the 2015 big move that we had with the unexpected central bank intervention. So this could, I would say, go as far as to say, could be the big one of 2024. So watch out here. The level is ahead of us. We're not that far away from it. We're either going to hold or we're going to break it. I sense, given the momentum on the downside, we're going to break it, and then we've toppled over the edge of the cliff. Thank you very much indeed, everybody. I hope you found this session beneficial. We've covered a lot from really top down, and also covering gold and the currencies. So thank you very much indeed. As I say, I hope you find it beneficial. That's it from me today. Trevor Neil, analyst at RRG Research from London, wishing you the best, and may the trend be with you. Goodbye.